A lot of people believe that personality is something fixed that is formed in our teenage years. They believe that your personality is set in stone after 30, and there is no point in trying to change because it's just not going to work. But other people believe that we can continue to grow and change throughout our entire lives. So, who is right? Can we really change, or is our personality set in stone? Well, in today's video, we're going to look at both sides of this argument. Let's first start with some science. In psychology, there's an ongoing debate about whether personality is stable or if it changes over time. The answer seems to be somewhere in between these two extremes. According to research, our personalities are quite stable during our adult lives, but we can change. It's just not that easy. According to psychologist Dr. John Sharpless, your personality is more malleable when you're young, and it becomes more stable as you get older. This means that teenagers and young adults can change their personalities more easily than middle-aged or older adults. Your personality is like a house. As a young person, it's much easier to renovate your house when it's only an empty shell. But as you get older and fill that house with furniture, it becomes increasingly difficult to renovate. That being said, it is still possible to renovate a fully furnished house. It will just take more work. So what does this mean for us? Well, it means that we can change, but it will take work. It's not going to happen overnight. If you want to change your personality, you need to put in the effort. You won't become a completely different person, but you can change some of your personality traits. But why would you even want to change in the first place? After all, it's not that easy. Well, there are many reasons why someone might want to change. Maybe they're unhappy with some aspect of their personality. Maybe they feel like it's holding them back. Or maybe they just want to grow and change as a person. Whatever the reason, it's important to remember that it's not easy. Changing your personality is a challenge, but it's definitely possible. We know that we can change because there are many real-life examples of people who have changed dramatically. For example, think of someone you know who used to be very shy but has become much more outgoing, or someone who used to be very quiet but now speaks up more in meetings. These are examples of people who have changed their personalities. They were once one way and then something happened that caused them to change. Psychologist Dr. Sam Gosling conducted a study on personality change and found that people's personalities do change over time, but the changes are usually small. In his study, Dr. Gosling looked at personality changes in two groups of people. One group of young adults and one group of middle-aged adults. He found that the young adults changed more quickly and dramatically than the middle-aged adults. However, the middle-aged adults did change, just not as quickly. This study provides evidence that people can change, but it also shows that the changes are usually small. So, if you want to change your personality, don't expect to become a completely different person. Rather, expect to make small changes that add up to big results over time. So, how do we actually go about changing our personalities? Well, it starts with self-awareness. You need to be aware of the aspects of your personality that you want to change before you can do anything about it. Once you're aware of the areas that you want to change, you need to develop a plan. How are you going to go about making these changes? What steps do you need to take? And finally, you need to take action. This is the hard part, but it's also the most important part. You won't change unless you take action. One way to make personality changes is by practicing compassion. When we're trying to change, we often beat ourselves up when we slip up. We need to be patient and kind to ourselves. Changing our personality is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity to grow and become the best version of ourselves. If you've made it this far, you're probably starting to believe that we can change. But there are still some people who believe that we can't. So let's address some of the arguments against personality change. Some people say that once your brain is wired a certain way, it doesn't change. For example, they might say that if you're introverted, you're just born that way, and there's nothing you can do to change it. However, this argument doesn't hold up to scrutiny. There are many studies that show that our brains can change. In fact, our brains are constantly changing. This process is called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity refers to the ability of the brain to change its structure and function in response to experience. This means that our brains are not set in stone. They're constantly changing and adapting. This is good news for anyone who wants to change their personality, because it means that it's possible. Our brains are constantly changing, which means that we can change. Another argument against personality change is that it's just not possible after a certain age. Some people believe that you can't change your personality once you reach a certain age, such as 30 or 40. However, again, this argument is not true. There is no scientific basis for believing that you can't change after a certain age. Sure, it might be harder to change as you get older, but it's not impossible. The last argument against personality change is that it's just too hard. Some people say that it's just not worth the effort required to change. They believe that it's just easier to accept your personality than to try to change it. However, this argument ignores the fact that we're capable of amazing things. Have you ever accomplished something that you didn't think was possible? At the time it seemed impossible, but you did it anyway and you succeeded. This is just one example of how we can accomplish amazing things. We're capable of so much more than we think. Just because something is challenging doesn't mean it's impossible. If you're one of those people who believe that you can't change, then you're wrong. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't change. You're wrong. You're capable of anything you set your mind to. In conclusion, yes, we can change. It's not easy, but it's definitely possible. We know that we can change because there are many real-life examples of people who have changed dramatically. And we know that we can change because our brains are constantly changing. Finally, we know that we can change because there's no reason to believe that we can't. Sure, it might be hard, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. So if you want to change, go for it. It's worth it. Do you think that you can change? Let us know in the comments below. And if you like this video, please leave a like and share it with a friend. Thanks for watching.